This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
Tonight, Premier Tim Houston criticizes Halifax's designation of 9 parks for encampment sites.
I almost fell off my chair.
Dear Poppy, how heartfelt letters help bring a lost puppy home. And Nova Scotia Olympians are out on the water looking to bring home a medal.
Pretty active weather this afternoon, more of it for this evening, and then slight chances for rain. I'll explain coming up.
Good evening. Premier Tim Houston says he's shocked about the locations of new homeless encampments in Halifax. This week, Council approved 9 designated park sites that could be used as needed. They include part of the Halifax Common and Point Pleasant Park, which Houston says aren't appropriate. The CBC's Haley Ryan has more.
When asked about the new encampment sites, Premier Tim Houston did not hold back.
When I saw some of the sites that the HRM has designated, I almost fell off my chair. I thought it's completely nuts, some of the sites they're putting forward.
Houston says camps on the Halifax Common and Point Pleasant Park would be harmful to the surrounding communities.
I think it's good sometimes to have a frank and open dialogue and conversation. I think most Nova Scotians would agree that it's not these sites are not the most appropriate sites and may not be the most safe site for Nova Scotians.
Houston and Maguire did not have suggestions for where camps should be located instead. Residents in Point Pleasant Park applauded the Premier's comments.
Oh, bless his heart. I hadn't seen that yet, but I think that's great. It's shocking and stupid.
Fully agree. Again, I haven't found anyone who thinks this makes sense. There's massive risks here from a fire perspective. You burn this entire park down. We saw what happened with Juan, and it was devastating. Imagine having no trees, no park for the community to enjoy.
A petition against a designated site in Point Pleasant had about 800 signatures as of this afternoon. But others were not impressed with Houston's language.
I think it was a reprehensible comment. I think that the fact of the matter is that our homelessness issue and the fact that homelessness is so much worse than it was in the last couple of years is directly related to this government's housing policies and the government before them.
LeBlanc says the province should close the fixed-term lease loophole and bring in rent control to protect people from losing their housing. More than 150 people are sleeping rough in Halifax, with just over half of those staying in the 4 current encampments. The city says new designated sites are a way to relieve pressure on the current ones that are overcrowded and move people out of places that are seeing major problems.
We all believe people shouldn't have to live on the street. The fact is that people are living on the street. They are living now in Point Pleasant Park. They are living now in tents on the Commons. And so we're trying to manage that both for the safety of those who are homeless and also for the wider community.
The province does have teams offering mental health support to people in camps and connecting them to shelter or housing. Minister Maguire says they are close to announcing 2 sites for new pallet shelters, but those will take weeks to build. In the meantime, the city says designated tent sites are their only option. Haley Ryan, CBC News, Halifax.
Nova Scotia's Minister of Health, Michelle Thompson, is apologizing to the widow of well-known broadcaster Frank Cameron for the way he and his family were treated in the months before he died at the beginning of the year. Chris Cameron told CBC News that she was frustrated and disappointed by the way her husband was treated during hospital visits throughout the last year of his life. That included being moved from one ward to another with no notice and an undiagnosed hip fracture when he fell during a stay at the QE2 in Halifax.
Oh, I want to extend my sympathy and my compassion to Mrs. Cameron and her family, and I'm very sorry for the experiences that she had. We know that through our healthcare system, there are times that, we collectively could have done things much better, and I'm very grateful that Mrs. Cameron was able to share her story with us.
Thompson says the hospital is looking into the care Cameron received, which is normal procedure when someone makes a complaint to the hospital. She says those reviews try to come up with ways to make things better. Justice Minister Barbara Adams says she's anxious to hear what Nova Scotians have to say about policing in the province. Her department has launched a survey to find out as part of the province's review of police services in Nova Scotia. It was one of the recommendations made by the Mass Casualty Commission. That's the public inquiry that took place to determine the circumstances that allowed a gunman to kill 22 Nova Scotians 4 years ago. Adams says what the public has to say is important.
Well, it's one part of the very big puzzle of policing review, but it would carry a great deal of weight. When we hear directly from Nova Scotians how they feel about anything, that is the essence of what I, as a public official, want to be doing, is to take your voices and bring it to our government to make decisions.
Adams says the department has already heard from nearly 3,000 people. If you live in Halifax, you've likely seen the bright yellow posters with a picture of a black and white puppy. Poppy's disappearance last month touched a nerve with people across the city and beyond. Well, now that she's back home, her owners still have questions, but they're also saying thank you to everyone who stepped up to help find the lost dog. Emma Smith has that story.
Dear Poppy, today is day 5 of missing you. I had to call to cancel your vet appointment today because you're not home. There are so many people looking for you, pretty girl. We love and miss you so much. I can't wait to snuggle you again. Love, Mom and Dad.
This could have been a sad story, and for 29 days, it was. But neighbors and strangers, they didn't give up on this 5-pound Morkie. Poppy went missing in early June when she got free from her harness during a walk on Dutch Village Road in Fairview.
She was 4 months, and she just disappeared into thin air.
Nearly 500 neon yellow posters were put up all across the city, and her owners began writing heartfelt Facebook posts to Poppy every day. Their letters touched a nerve.
I knew that that's what needed to happen so that people knew about her.
After the first 4 or 5 days, I felt confident that someone did have her. If it was she was hit or something like that, we would have found her, someone would have called.
Nicole Pearson-Nearing had the same hunch. She's a lost animal recovery technician, a title she earned after taking a 10-week online course through the Missing Animal Response Network.
When she wasn't on the doorstep within 12 hours, then I highly suspected that the dog was stolen.
She scoured streets, knocked on doors, and asked businesses if they had security footage of Poppy. 2 weeks later, a break in the case.
We got a message on Facebook from a girl who had actually originally caught Poppy when the night she went missing. She said that a car had pulled up and said, hey, we actually know the owners, give her to us and we'll drop her off. They didn't know the owners because she did not come back to us that night.
They posted a $10,000 reward. Pearson-Nearing says it's not something she usually recommends.
Because if a lost dog is out there and scared and in flight mode, and we have people flooding the area with a cash reward then looking for the dog, you're actually going to push the dog out.
But Poppy's case was different. They suspected someone had her, and they wanted to put pressure on them to give her up. It worked.
So when I got the call, my first question was, could you send a picture? And I was like, yeah, that's Poppy.
Pearson-Nearing chose a public place to meet up.
They were very, very nervous. They were very upset. I just made sure that we were speaking along the way. I wanted to make sure, that she knew that, listen, you're doing the right thing by contacting me. Look who I have in my hands right here. That's right, folk, little Poppy.
I don't remember a lot of it because I was crying so hard.
Poppy has been to the vet and she's healthy. She's slowly getting back to her old routine. All 3 of them still have questions about what happened during those 29 days and whether the person who returned Poppy was involved in any way. Pearson-Nearing says the reward money hasn't been given out at this point as they try to answer those questions, but she says it won't go to anyone involved in taking Poppy. Sutton and Bastarash, they don't know if they'll go to police. Right now, they're just thankful their puppy's home.
She's a little bit of everybody's dog now.
Queen of Fairview.
Emma Smith, CBC News, Halifax.
All right, Tina, it sounds like you're tracking some pretty severe weather tonight.
Yeah, we have 2 severe thunderstorm warnings, primarily for areas in the valley where we've seen this line of scattered showers and thunderstorms really work its way in, and it's continuing to work its way southward. So take a look. We have lots of severe thunderstorm watches, and that includes northern Nova Scotia, and we have some rainfall warnings as well, with this band of showers that continues to work its way southward, but it is producing a lot of rain in localized areas, and we are seeing some heavy rainfall amounts as the system continues to work its way through. Some of the rainfall totals are coming in anywhere from 30 to 50 millimeters in the last hour and a half, and this thing continues to put down the rain. So whenever you get these thunderstorms developing in localized areas and they're not moving quickly southward, again, we do have the potential for some heavy rain to continue throughout the evening. In fact, take a look at some of the radar returns from the last hour or so, and we are seeing lots of lightning associated with it. So the potential for some very heavy rain. I would not want to be underneath these things. These are producing a lot of rain. Your windshield wiper blades do not have a chance against these storms. We'll continue to track this, and we'll have more in the forecast when this is going to get out of here and when the heat will be turned back on coming up in just a little bit.
All right, be careful out there tonight. Thanks, Tina. Well, an Atlantic salmon strategy is likely coming this fall, and right now, Fisheries and Oceans Canada is asking for feedback on their drafted plan. The idea is to come up with ways to restore and maintain Atlantic salmon populations and habitats. The Atlantic Salmon Federation, based in New Brunswick, says it's pleased a strategy is in the works, and while questions remain about how much funding will back a strategy, they say the draft is an important first step. The deadline to submit feedback is July 30th. Marine Atlantic's new ferry, the Alasuanu, has made her maiden voyage from Nova Scotia to Newfoundland and Labrador. The crossing was delayed for weeks due to mechanical issues, taking a big bite out of tourism. Heather Gillis was there as the ferry pulled into port in Argentia.
Like a ghost ship emerging from the mist, the Alasuanu docked in Argentia around 9 this morning for the first time. A welcome sight for people in the area, many coming out to watch as the first 400-odd passengers started rolling off the ferry. Passengers like Robert Walker from Montreal, whose travel plans were unaffected by the ship's mechanical issues.
It was nice because at 5:30 we went to our cabin, take all the luggage and everything, go to the bar, take a small drink and eat, and after that, good night's sleep.
The Alasuanu's maiden voyage first scheduled for June 14th, almost a month ago. Sailings delayed due to problems with fuel and lubrication lines. As many as 8,000 passengers had cancelled crossings from Argentia, having to instead make a trek to Port aux Basques, 850 kilometers away. No ferry here meant no passengers and no customers for Cecilia McFarlane.
Well, we've had a zero business because it's a big impact for this whole area. My shop, especially, Island Arts and Crafts, where I rely solely on Marine Atlantic ferries coming into Argentia.
A tough pill to swallow since McFarlane orders product in October for the season ahead from suppliers across the province. A third of the season now lost, along with a lot of money.
Well, I would say $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 gone.
A similar story over at the nearby Sunset RV Park.
Disastrous, I guess you can sum it up in one word.
It's a social enterprise with 12 to 20 camper cancellations a day and fewer just popping by. Lost money here means less for programs for the Freshwater Community Centre, says Dan Culleton.
I'd say between $12,000 and $15,000. And that's only for this local small organisation.
The Alasuanu departs for Nova Scotia tonight, but next week some crossings will be cancelled again on the 17th and 18th so a new crew can get familiar with the ship. Meanwhile, the business community here is hoping they can recover from what has been lost. Heather Gillis, CBC News, Argentia.
Heavy rainfall has caused havoc this week for Little League baseball players in Sydney. The U12 Sydney Sooners team lost the chance to host provincials this week due to field conditions. It's an ongoing issue that parents, players, and coaches want addressed. Here's the CBC's Kyle Moore.
The Cameron Bowl in Glace Bay is the site of this year's Nova Scotia Major Little League Championships after the tournament was moved from Sydney River because of the condition of the field.
Some of the parents were there 7 a.m. Sunday morning with pumps and rakes. There was about a dozen of us there. We spent 5-6 hours and it was just unplayable.
Having the proper field to play on has been an ongoing issue for Little Leaguers in Sydney.
We've been practicing all year. The boys were excited to host, but we went through the same thing last year. We were supposed to host last year. Same idea, but the tournament got forced to move to Sydney Mines. And basically here we are again.
A group of volunteers are hoping to make a Little League sanctioned field with proper dimensions, a turf playing surface, and improved drainage a reality.
The CBRM has committed $200,000 to the project, and the group has been awarded $150,000 from Jay's Care. But they can't access that money until a commitment is given by the provincial and federal governments. The Jay's Care money will run out July 31st.
Everywhere we go, there seems to be a complex for any kids under the age of 13. So in Sydney, we have nothing, and it's very disappointing. And it's a shame that all these kids in Sydney are coming through Little League and not getting that true Little League experience.
A spokesperson with the province says the application for funding is still under review. We requested an interview today, but we're told nobody was available.
Please help. The kids deserve it.
Number 11, Noah Bootler.
For now, there's no home field advantage for Sydney as these Little Leaguers continue their quest for a provincial title. Kyle Moore, CBC News, Glace Bay.
The Summer Olympic Games in France are just around the corner. The Paris Games are set to open July 26th, and 4 paddlers from Nova Scotia will be on the water looking to win a medal. The CBC's Paul Palmer spent time with our Nova Scotia paddlers this week and has this report.
Every morning on Lake Binook, Olympic paddlers are up early, working out and getting ready for the Paris Olympics. 32-year-old Michelle Russell is from Fall River, and this will be her second trip to the Olympic Games.
I sat down at the beginning of this year and I said I wanted to do top 6. I want to, get the same results or better than I did last year at the World Championships, which was 6.
Surrounding the Olympic athletes on the lake are dozens of young aspiring Olympians at 3 paddling clubs. A dozen years ago, Riley Melanson was one of them, and now she's about to live her dream of competing as a paddler on Canada's K4 team in the world's biggest sporting event.
Grew up paddling right on Lake Binook. I actually live on the same street as the canoe club, so it's basically been my life in the summers for my whole life, and I've been really lucky to paddle at a few clubs in HRM, so I've gotten the full experience.
59! 20 kilometers away in Lower Sackville, Canada's Olympic canoe team works out on First Lake. Sloane McKenzie of Windsor Junction is part of the C2 women's 500-meter team. If they can duplicate their results in recent world competitions, they could bring home a medal.
We had Worlds in Germany, which was also part of the Olympic qualification year, where we were 3rd, which was very exciting. We were very pleased with that. And then again, this year, we were 2nd at World Cup. So we're feeling good, we're feeling excited heading into the games, and we'll see what happens.
McKenzie is only 22, and odds are good she'll also compete in the 2028 Olympics.
Ready, set, up!
Like Russell in kayaking, Connor Fitzpatrick is heading to Paris for his 2nd Olympics. The Tokyo Games 3 years ago were without spectators and many COVID restrictions were in place. So Paris will be a much different Olympic experience.
Getting to have my family and friends and girlfriend there is just going to be such a bonus, and it's going to feel more like home this time to have that support staff with you. So I'm just really excited to get on the course and lay it all out there.
The Canadian paddling team will continue to train for 2 more weeks in Nova Scotia. Then they'll head to the south of France for a brief training camp before they go to the Games in Paris. Paul Palmer, CBC News, Lower Sackville.
Coming up, as the NATO summit concludes, Canada announces a timeline for defense spending targets. And a fed-up PEI restaurant owner tracks down Dine and Dashers with the help of social media. And there's the view of Halifax Harbour. Some folks ferrying their way home. Tina is back after the break with her full weather forecast. Stay with us. All right, Tina, we're talking about some rain coming down in an awful hurry around the province, and you've got some fresh numbers.
Yeah, I was just looking at some of the rainfall totals via the storm spotters that are out there, Kokoraz and the Cape Breton Mesonet, and just looking at some of the totals, impressive. 65 almost millimeters of rain in Windsor, in parts of Annapolis County, anywhere from 80 to 100 millimeters.
Wow, that's a
and
lot.
that happened in about a 2-hour period. That's a lot of rain in a very short amount of time. Truro is only reporting 24, but still, that's, again, in a short amount of time, 24 millimeters. Amherst had 34 millimeters and Stewiacke about 22. There are severe thunderstorm warnings in place for Hants and Kings County right now, courtesy of these thunderstorms that are overhead and producing a lot of rain in localized areas. We still have a severe thunderstorm watch in effect from Annapolis County all through Colchester and Cumberland County, including Hants, as well as Kings County, and a rainfall warning basically from northern Nova Scotia stretching into Antigonish and Pictou County as well. So where we have those electrical storms, they are producing localized heavy rain, anywhere from 30 to 50 would be average. But again, some of these totals are almost unbelievable when you're looking at parts of Annapolis County seeing 80 to 100 millimeters of rain in a very short amount of time. And here's a closer look at where the heavier pockets of rain would not want to be under any of these. We have this rain stretching all the way through Truro into New Glasgow and all the way to Port Hawkesbury, now starting to push its way into Cape Breton. And it's all along a line. There's a boundary overhead, and this boundary is sinking its way southward. So those along the Atlantic coast have hardly seen a drop of rain, but where there is rain, there's a whole lot of it. And the trailing edge is going to drop southward and push along areas of the Atlantic coast. And we also have more developing scattered showers back to the west. So it's going to be active for the next couple of hours. The sun is setting, so that's to our advantage. So these thunderstorms won't be as numerous as what we're seeing out there right now, really in the heat of the day. And courtesy of this cloud cover, we did see the temperatures really starting to come back today. Yesterday at this time, remember, we were seeing our temperatures in the upper 20s. We even had some 30-degree temperature readings. So the cooler air is associated with the cloud cover as well as the rain, not so much the air mass. We're still in that sticky air mass. And once we get rid of this rain and clouds, our temperatures are going to pop right back up. The humidity is still pretty high when you're seeing those dew point temperatures in the upper teens to lower 20s. You know, it's pretty sticky out there and pretty rainy as well. We do have temperatures tonight just falling a couple of degrees from where they are right now in many locations, holding in the upper teens to lower 20s, keeping in those showers and thunderstorms in the evening forecast. And then the rain will start tapering off overnight tonight. Temperatures will be very mild and the winds will still continue out of the southwest and a little bit gusty at times, 20 gusting up to 40 kilometers per hour. Notice what happens by tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow morning we'll keep in those showers. We should clear out midday and then we'll see more developing showers into the afternoon, but that won't be for everyone. They will just be those spotty showers. In fact, the best chances for rain are going to be in the western third of the province where it's pretty dry right now, and it looks like we're going to almost stay that way as the system is continuing to work its way off towards the south and to the east. So the weekend forecast, not a complete washout, but it's definitely not going to be dry. We will be seeing some scattered showers from time to time. So tomorrow the heat is back on. Most of the temperatures will be back up into the upper 20s. Again, it's remaining humid. So those afternoon scattered showers are certainly not out of the question. So tonight, if you can stay home, do so, because you don't want to get caught underneath one of these storms. They will be subsiding overnight. Showers tomorrow morning, then redeveloping showers tomorrow afternoon. Showers in the afternoon on Saturday as well as Sunday. And then we have to keep those showers in and out of the forecast next week as well. And then looks like a cool down happening on Tuesday with some cooler air expected to move in, and that will cut the humidity as well. But until then, hot, humid with scattered showers in and out of the forecast.
Yeah, seems to be a pattern, right?
Think so.
Okay, thanks, Tina. Well, a Charlottetown restaurant owner is crediting the public and the power of social media for helping her track down a family who dined and dashed. A family visiting the island spent nearly $200 at Lobster on the wharf Monday evening, then took off. Steve Bruce tells us what happened next.
This is the typical scene at Lobster on the Wharf. Diners are ordering, eating, and most importantly, paying. That's not the way it played out at one table Monday evening. A family ordered lobsters, oysters, and drinks, and then took off before getting their $170 bill.
Well, it's really disheartening, and I talked to the server and he was totally shocked. He said it was a mom and dad and 2 little kids. He said, I never would have thought.
Lisa Gale says it happens a few times a year here. In the past, the diners and dashers were never caught, but Monday night, staff tracked down security camera footage of the family leaving. Gale posted it to the restaurant's Facebook page. She says 600 people shared it, 60,000 viewed it. The calls started coming in.
Had great response. We had so many phone calls yesterday that it ended up leading to actually a phone number for the visitors to the island. And when I reached out to them to ask, why you left and didn't pay your bill, they were more concerned with their pictures on social media. So I agreed if they sent me the money and paid for the meal that I would take the pictures down.
This morning, she got an e-transfer for $170 and took down the post.
Well, I think it kind of turned into a good story with all the help from all the good citizens and the people looking at the posts, and I can't thank them enough for helping. I never thought in a million years we would recover that money.
The Atlantic rep for Restaurants Canada says it shouldn't come to that. Thankfully, he says dining and dashing is rare, but when it happens, it hurts, especially now with many restaurants struggling with rising costs and fewer customers.
Well, the odd $100 or $200 bill in some cases might be what a restaurant's margin is for that day. Most of these independents are dealing with pretty slim margins, so a couple of $100, it may not seem like a lot to some people, but it is a lot to someone who's trying to eke out a living with a low margin business.
Charlottetown Police said today restaurants should report diners and dashers. It is a criminal offense that can lead to charges. In this case, Lobster on the Wharf's owner says she's just happy to have her bill paid and a story to tell that she hopes sends a message.
There's cameras everywhere now, and people have to know that if you go out and eat or if you go out and break the law, then you're going to get caught.
Steve Bruce, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Up next, Premier Tim Houston had a strong reaction to HRM announcing 9 new encampment sites, including the Halifax Common and Point Pleasant Park, to deal with the growing number of people sleeping rough. We'll hear some of what he told reporters this afternoon. Stay with us. You're watching CBC Nova Scotia News. Earlier this week, Halifax Regional Municipality announced 9 new encampment sites to deal with the growing number of people sleeping rough. They include the Halifax Common and Point Pleasant Park. Today, Premier Tim Houston talked to reporters about those sites. Here's some of his conversation with journalists earlier today.
When I saw some of the sites that the HRM has designated, I almost fell off my chair. I thought it's completely nuts, some of the sites they're putting forward. We as a province have been working with the HRM very diligently on possible sites for a number of situations to help citizens. I think it's over 40 sites that the province has been kind of proposing and trying to work with HRM on. So the designation of some of these sites is just, it's just really hard to get the head around how the HRM Council could think that these would be appropriate sites and the impact that they would have on communities and on Nova Scotians.
Which ones are nuts?
There's a number of them that are, but certainly Point Pleasant Park and the Commons are standout.
These 40 sites the province is proposing, are those public spaces or those spaces that the province owns? Like, what are we talking about?
It'd be a combination. I mean, I guess what I would say is this is an active file. Our government has made significant investments in housing, in supporting homelessness and supports to those Nova Scotians that need it. And certainly the monies that have been made available are, like, I think it's over 300% of what we initially contemplated. Like, it's we're there, we're investing, we're working with the municipality. We need a willing partner who also kind of wants to approach us in the same fashion.
Do you feel they're unwilling at this point?
I think they could. Well, what I would say is the sites that they put forward are pretty shocking.
These 40 sites you're talking about, are you talking about shelters, like with a roof over their head?
Variety of things. Obviously, the pallet homes. There's some pallet homes now. There's other potential sites. There's lots of discussions around options and opportunities. We're a compassionate government. We're there to support. We'll invest and provide services. But some of these decisions around some of these sites are just shocking in the impact that they would have.
Of the pallet homes that you've paid for are up and set up and people are living in them. When are the other pallet homes going to be set
I think
up?
the minister would have a more fulsome timeline, but over heading into the fall, I guess.
Anything the government can do to stop those sites from going ahead?
I'm not sure. Obviously, it's new news. It's a HRM council decision. In the case of something like Point Pleasant Park, I think that's federal land. So that would be the federal government that would, I guess, maybe be looking at that. But certainly, I guess my message is we know that there's work to be done. We're willing to do it. We're putting forward ideas. We're making budget available. We're putting forward solutions. But we have to be mindful of the broader community and the impact on them as well.
Can you give an example of one or two of these 40 from your list?
Well, some of them would be known, but these are discussions that are happening with HRM.
Just an example.
I guess what I would say is I've made my opinion pretty clear, I think, on the sites that they've come out with. There's a number of other sites that we're discussing with them, and I'll respect those discussions.
Coming up, a treasure trove of memories. A Winnipeg pharmacist discovers a box of unclaimed photos from decades past. And welcome back. Canada expects to reach NATO's defense spending target of 2% of GDP in 2032. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made the announcement today in Washington on the final day of the NATO Leaders Summit. Amid mounting pressure from allies to hit the military's alliance's spending benchmark. Evan Dyer has the details.
Today in Washington, a three-way deal between the U.S., Canada and Finland to build icebreakers. The deal is built around Quebec's Davie Shipbuilding, which owns both the Canadian and Finnish shipyards. The U.S. wants to draw on their expertise to revitalize its own shipbuilding industry at the Bollinger Shipyard in Louisiana. The U.S. has only 2 aging polar icebreakers. Russia has 40, including 5 nuclear-powered ships, and China is building icebreakers too. The so-called Ice Pact could generate a lot of economic activity. The three partners hope to build about 80 ships and sell them to NATO and other allies. But Canada has committed to make the ships, not to buy them. So it's not clear it will help Canada to meet the NATO defense spending threshold of 2% of GDP. Today, Prime Minister Trudeau denied that Canada is feeling heat over the failure to meet that 2%.
It actually hasn't been a political problem this year and this week. It has been a conversation that allies have been pleased to hear that we have a plan and a timeline to get to the 2%.
Indeed, U.S. Ambassador David Cohen said the U.S. was pleased and encouraged by Canada's announcements. But powerful Republicans in Washington, who may soon return to power, have been harsher.
It's shocking and unacceptable that some allies, especially some capable ones, have yet to reach the 2% requirement that they agreed to. Canada is among this group.
Meanwhile, other NATO members are calling for the threshold to move higher.
So 2% is certainly a floor, but it's not the ceiling, and we are going to be investing heavily also. We have a trajectory up to 2.6 by 2028.
2% is not going to be enough.
Trudeau says he's always questioned the value of the 2% threshold as a measure of a country's contributions. But Canada did agree to that goal 10 years ago. Today, Trudeau said Canada will get there 8 years from now. But there's not a lot of details on exactly how that will happen. And it looks increasingly likely the goalposts will move before Canada reaches them. Evan Dyer, CBC News, Washington.
The federal opposition leaders addressed the Assembly of First Nations today. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre got mixed reaction in his first in-person appearance at the AFN. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh made his pitch for further reconciliation, and the Liberal government was also there to unveil a major funding agreement. Olivia Stefanovich has the details.
For both the Conservative leader and First Nations chiefs, a significant moment.
This is my first meeting with you in person, but I hope it will be the first of many.
A chance for Pierre Poilievre to reset the tone with the Assembly of First Nations, a relationship that's faced challenges.
If reconciliation means anything, it means saying yes to economic opportunities that First Nations are asking for.
Some delegates turned their backs, a silent protest involving veterans, members of the LGBTQ and Two-Spirit community.
I'm trying not to cry right now, but standing up there for all of my Two-Spirit people, that it was just something that I had to do.
In your speech, you did not acknowledge missing murdered women.
Poilievre was also called out for what he didn't say.
I did not hear anything about the climate crisis, climate change issues. There's a hurricane in the town right now from the remnants from Burrell. How can we dismiss climate crisis?
But the message Poilievre came to deliver, one focused on resource and economic development, welcomed by others.
And I'm pretty certain he will form government according to the polls. And we wish him well, and we want to work with him and start building those relationships now to make sure that we get some good things going for First Nations people in this country.
And Poilievre wasn't the only political leader vying for approval.
Economic reconciliation cannot happen unless it means respecting your rights to free, informed prior consent.
Singh tried to counter the Conservative message. So did the Indigenous Services Minister, who arrived on the last day of AFN meetings for a sudden press conference.
We are pleased to announce that we have secured a commitment from the Government of Canada to provide $47.8 billion in funding over 10 years.
That money aimed at solving one of the biggest outstanding issues between the government and First Nations, child welfare reform. The government hoping the dollar figure will trump any promises Poilievre and Singh try to make. Olivia Stefanovich, CBC News, Montreal.
A small town in Alberta has declared a local healthcare crisis. Hinton, which is about 300 kilometers west of Edmonton, is running out of doctors. In response, the community is being forced to use its own municipal dollars to keep the local medical clinic open. Julia Wong reports.
This community is facing an extreme doctor shortage. It used to have the equivalent of 15 family doctors. Now it only has 6. And the mayor says half the community doesn't have a family doctor. And people we spoke to say that makes them feel uneasy.
Well, I had to go back to the doctor to get more my prescription or whatever, but I can't get in for another 3 weeks. So I was like, well, what the heck am I going to do?
Awful. Just to even go in and just for a common cold or just to get a prescription renewed, you can't.
The local medical clinic was at risk of shutting down because the remaining doctors in town simply couldn't keep up with expenses. So the municipality decided to take the situation into its own hands. It's keeping the local medical clinic afloat with $1 million over 2 years.
That injection of cash will ease that burden and allow us to continue making this clinic work and keep it open. But I would love to see a longer-term commitment from the province, who is in charge of providing healthcare services to Albertans.
I don't think that municipalities should be putting this money up. I also don't think that we have a choice. We absolutely require higher levels of government to start looking at our healthcare system and start bringing solutions to some of these problems.
The town's mayor says the funding is a temporary measure, not a long-term solution. In a statement, Alberta's health minister says she appreciates the mayor's solution-focused approach, adding the province is working on ways to address issues in rural healthcare. Julia Wong, CBC News, Hinton, Alberta.
The RCMP has launched a new campaign to raise awareness about what it's calling foreign interference activities committed by China. The Mounties say there's been a spike in complaints over the last month. Douglas Gallivan has the details.
With boots on the ground, the RCMP is hoping this awareness campaign comes across as a show of support. They want anyone who has been threatened or harassed by the People's Republic of China to feel comfortable coming forward.
It could be anything. It could be someone threatening you if you don't remove a social media post. It could be someone threatening you to go back to China to settle some outstanding debt or issues. Otherwise, they're going to threaten or harm your family over there.
The RCMP says it's been aware for some time that China is exerting influence over people in Canada. In March last year, it revealed that 2 community groups, one in Chinatown and one in Brossard, were under investigation for allegedly hosting secret Chinese government police stations. It accused them of acting as hubs to harass and intimidate members of the Chinese community in Canada. The groups deny the allegations and are suing for damages.
The investigation has had a chilling effect on the community. People prevented themselves from reaching out to get help at our community centers because of the allegations of the RCMP.
But the RCMP says the threats and harassment continue. In the past few weeks alone, it says it's received about 6 credible complaints.
It's obviously intolerable for us to let it go.
The campaign also includes this social media video. Community leaders say they encourage anyone who is being harassed by the Chinese government to come forward, but add that it could be an uphill battle.
Chinese community is not a homogenous community. So there are people who do trust the police implicitly. I don't trust the RCMP. They just threw us into the public and say, hey, these are Chinese police stations, and then gave no other information to support their allegations.
The RCMP says that the investigation into these secret Chinese government police stations is ongoing, but can't say if it will lead to criminal charges because sometimes in cases of foreign actor interference, criminal charges just aren't possible. It says that it might have to resort to disruption methods, but adds that they're not at that point yet. Douglas Gellivan, CBC News, Montreal.
A Winnipeg man discovered a box of priceless memories in the basement of a pharmacy where he works. Long-lost photos from decades ago. Now he's giving families a chance to reunite with photos of their loved ones and revisit the past through lost photographs. Zubina Ahmed has more.
Dwayne Hines was cleaning the basement of the pharmacy where he works when he stumbled upon vintage photos. Hines shows us the box of unclaimed pictures dating back to the 1960s.
Because we're looking at, 60 years ago, 58 years ago, this is really something from history that you're actually opening up like an archaeologist, you know what I mean? Opening up a tomb.
Wedding pictures, family portraits, vacations, or personal moments.
I'm from a generation where pictures are very important because that was all we had back then for history and past experiences and that sort of thing. So I knew I had a responsibility to get these pictures out to the people or the relatives of them. So
Hines posted about it on a Facebook group.
I'm overwhelmed. Just this little box made such a great impact. And
in one case, it's all that's left after a woman lost everything in a house fire.
And so now this one package of pictures is all she has. So she's coming to pick them up tomorrow. And she's saying that it was her mother's handwriting and that sort of thing on the package. So it's going to be really precious to her. Oh, E. Rudolph, 792 Stella Avenue.
Hines says people are already coming to claim photos. Cheryl McNabb is one of them.
This is my late grandma, my grandma Violet, and we're excited about whatever kind of pictures that we can take of her, because there's a lot. But these are going to be the missing link to somebody who's in the family. I don't know. You're going to make a lot of people happy.
I'm hoping.
Totally.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you.
Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Yeah, you were talking earlier about that intense rain coming down so quickly, and now it sounds like it's on the move.
It is on the move, but for those that were under it, I mean, some people are probably thinking, what rain, what torrential rain? But in Annapolis County, some of the preliminary totals from some of the spotters are coming in between 80 and 100 millimeters, and that's just over a couple of hours, 2 to 3 hours. The rain is continuing. The fact the severe thunderstorm watch box has been extended into Halifax County, and rainfall warnings are in place as well. Take a look at some of these clusters of storms. The problem is that they're not moving fast at all. They're almost moving in from west to east. The whole line is slowly sinking southward, but there's one thunderstorm after another. So we have bands of heavy rain coming in one after another, and that's producing some pretty impressive rainfall underneath these. So from Kentville all the way over, we are seeing some pockets of some very heavy rain, and more rain is developing back to the west. We also have more scattered showers over New Brunswick. So once this batch of rain is over, we still have showers in the forecast for the overnight hours, and those showers will continue with some fog patches. I think tomorrow morning there may be even a few scattered showers out there as well, and then more redeveloping showers tomorrow afternoon. It's not going to be the washout that we're seeing out there right now, but the rain showers are going to stay in and out of the forecast, not only for tomorrow, but for the weekend as well. Not everyone is going to get in on the rain, but it looks like the heat is going to be for everyone. We're back into the heat warning criteria tomorrow, and that's going to continue right on through the weekend. It doesn't look like things are going to let up as far as the heat and the humidity is concerned until Tuesday of next week, when we do have some slightly cooler air that's going to come into play. But tonight, very rocky with those storms.
Sounds like it. All right, well, a man from BC thought he'd never see his garden gnomes again after all but one disappeared from his yard recently, until a week later when he heard a knock on the door. A woman was there and identified herself as a member of the Gnome Restoration Society. She led him to the trunk of her car, where she revealed his collection of gnomes, except they'd been treated to a major makeover.
Yeah, the woman said a group of retired people are behind the project, but they wish to remain anonymous. The owner had planned to give them, give them away because they had seen better days.
Yep, now they've got a special place in his garden, so it's all good. That's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.